To be honest, in the video I'm a little unsure about how to go setting up, but I'll get straight to it. Our 47th president, Donald Trump, has been the center topic of America in the last decade, and whether you love him or hate him, chances are you have some opinion on him. As we're approaching my birthday, I want to focus on some things that have changed in the last 6 months. I consider myself pretty independent and not a part of either party, but I believe I lean more left, but I also have some stances, beliefs, and issues where I also agree and stand with the right. And whether you're Democratic or Republican, there's a lot of choices Trump's made that I'll be going over you'll probably disagree with. Today, I want to go over the people Trump has chosen to pardon and the crimes they are either guilty, convicted, or being sentenced for. This will be a pretty negative video and if you stand with Trump, and so I want to emphasize I'll be focusing on a video right after this where we go to the past and focus on the Democratic side. I want this to be about Trump and his advisors' issues, specifically right now. Not Sleepy Joe, not the Clintons, but I'm more happy to do that soon if you're more right-leaning and hate this. I'll try to balance it out, but what's important to me is the present moment and our future we are inflicting damage to. If you disagree, stick around. For time's sake, I'm going to ignore the January 6th pardons of 1,500 people, including the Proud Boys, an American far-right, neo-fascist militant group that promotes and engages in political violence and are racially aligned with white supremacy ideology. That's too much right there. Let's get into the 68 pardons done in the last 6 months, ignoring the 1,500. Starting with one of the biggest ones, January 21st, 2025, Ross William Ulbricht, otherwise known for his involvement in the creation of the Silk Road, for illicit activities, drugs, stuff like that. Really bad shit, right? He was serving life imprisonment for aiding and abetting distribution of drugs over the internet, continued criminal enterprise, computer hacking conspiracy, fraud with identification documents, money laundering conspiracy. You then have Terrence, because we're going to go through all of them one by one. You then have Terrence Dale Sutton Jr., 66 months imprisonment, murder in second degree, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and aiding and abetting. Terrence, along with another, were police officers who were found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in the murder of Karen Hilton Brown and the cover-up of her death. So they tried covering it up. And they were serving a long time, and they were no longer cops. But this got pardoned. Cool. You have Andrew Zavatsky, 3 years supervised release, 48 months imprisonment. Conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and aiding and abetting. He's the other police officer in this case, a double whammy. We have Rod R. Blagovich, 168 months imprisonment. Fine doesn't matter, it's $20,000. Chief of Staff, impeached for wire fraud under color of official right, 8 counts. Conspiracy attempted, attempt to commit extortion under color of official right, conspiracy to solicit and solicitation of bribe, making false statements. We have Gene Pinkert, sentenced 1 year and 1 day imprisonment, conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute and to distribute controlled substance. Where medical professionals charged in the scheme prescribed more than 1.9 million doses of Schedule II controlled substances and 739 doses of promethazine, with the oxycodone and oxymorphone alone carrying a street value of more than 41 million. We have Brian Kelsey, who was sentenced to 22 months for funneling money from a state committee to a federal campaign and not disclosing illegal excess contributions were going to his campaign in 2016. Court battles went on, and because it's elitist America, Brian was not in any custody until he was sentenced February 2025, spending only 15 days in jail before Trump pardoned him in March 12th. We have 6 gentlemen I'm going to speed through rather than naming each of them, who were co-founders and high members in the crypto BitMEX, who were tried and sentenced for failing and willfully ignoring to establish, implement, and maintain an anti-money laundering program in their cryptocurrency, in which they all pled guilty, all of which got probation between 18 months and 4 years. All of which Trump pardoned. We have Jason Galanis, sentenced to 135 months imprisonment and asking restitution of 47.7 million for conspiracy to commit securities fraud, 2 counts, securities fraud, investment advisor fraud. We have Aussie Media Inc., 1 year probation, 36.7 million restitution for conspiracy to commit securities fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, for raising nearly 50 million through falsifying information about themselves. And then we have the CEO of that company, Carlos Roy Watson, sentenced to 116 months imprisonment, 2 years supervised release for conspiracy to commit securities fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft. We have Michelle Fior, 6 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, with a max sentence of 140 years. A former Las Vegas councilwoman and Nevada assembly member who was convicted of federal wire fraud and conspiracy charges in October 2024, last year, for misusing funds intended for a memorial statue honoring fallen police officers. Attempts to acquit her failed, and she was convicted and sentenced, but she was pardoned the same week. We have Paul Nutsack, 18 months imprisonment, 4.3 million restitution for not paying employment taxes and not filing his individual income tax returns. According to the DOJ, he'd withheld nearly 7.5 million in taxes from workers at his healthcare companies, but he did not pay those over to IRS. In his asking for clemency, he referenced his mother, Elizabeth Fago's unwavering support for Trump, which worked out for Paul, as Fago, his mother, later attended a Mar-a-Lago fundraising dinner with $1 million cost per person, and Nutsack was pardoned less than 3 weeks later. We have Scott Howard Jenkins, a Coltberry Town sheriff, sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for accepting over $75,000 in bribes in exchange for appointing numerous North Virginia businessmen as auxiliary deputy sheriffs within his department. He was being charged with conspiracy to commit bribery concerning programs receiving federal funds, honest service mail fraud, and honest service wire fraud, honest services mail fraud, honest services wire fraud 3 counts, bribery concerning programs receiving federal funds 7 counts. We have James Callahan for filing false labor union reports. Was general president of the International Union of Operating Engineers when he accepted but failed to properly report he was receiving $315,000 in tickets to sporting events, concerts, and other amenities from a company that the union was using to place advertisement. There is no sentencing because he was pardoned while in court just 6 days ago. May 28th. We have Kevin Eric Beisden, 90 days imprisonment, involved in multiple civilian-type criminal cases, including fraud, shoplifting, second-degree theft, charges relating to soliciting a minor, and sexual conduct with a student. Nice one, Trump. We have couple Julie Chrissy and Todd Chrissy from some stupid TV show sentenced to 84 months and 144 months, respectively, for conspiracy to commit bank fraud 5 counts, wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the U.S. to obstruct and impede the internal revenue laws, tax evasion, obstruction of justice. We have Lawrence S. Duran sentenced to 50 years imprisonment for the conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud 11 counts, conspiracy to defraud the United States and receive and pay healthcare kickbacks, conspiracy to commit money laundering 18 counts, and structuring to avoid reporting requirements 6 counts. We have popular rapper NBA Youngboy sentenced to 23 months imprisonment for felonies in possession of a firearm. We have Michael Gerard Grimm sentenced to 8 months for 20 counts of fraud, federal tax evasion, and perjury. He pleaded guilty to a single count of felony tax fraud in 2014, acknowledging committing perjury, hiring illegal immigrants, and committing wire fraud. While he has done his time and was back on the streets during this pardon, Trump recently cleaned this previous Republican congressman's record. We have Michael Ray Harris, co-founder of Death Row Records, 235 months imprisonment, 5 years for conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute and to aid and abet possession and distribution of cocaine, aiding and abetting possession with intent to distribute cocaine, and possession with intent to distribute cocaine. But if you know anything about Michael Ray Harris, then this dude deserves to go back to prison like right now, because cocaine should not be the only thing he's locked up for. We have Larry Hoover of the Hoover Gang sentenced to life imprisonment for narcotics conspiracy, continuing criminal enterprise, use of persons under 18, distribution of cocaine, use of a communication facility and committing the narcotics conspiracy, distribution of cocaine 2 counts, use of a firearm, and the commission of a drug trafficking crime. Oh my god. I do want to make clear that because of the state charges against Hoover, he'll be staying in prison, as it's one of those things that the president can't get him out of. I didn't want to misportray this as if he's gotten out. We have Marion I. Morgan sentenced to 405 months with a $19.9 million restitution, asking for defrauding 87 investors of nearly $28 million. She was convicted for conspiracy to defraud the United States, wire fraud 7 counts, transfer of funds taken by funds 5 counts, money laundering 6 counts, making false statements on income tax returns 3 counts. We have John G. Rowland sentenced to 12 months and 1 day's imprisonment for conspiracy to defraud the United States, falsification of records in a federal investigation, conspiracy, causing false statements 2 counts, illegal campaign contributions 2 counts, specifically because he was a governor who he was benefiting from another campaign he was helping out. He hid the fact and tried to cover that he was being paid. We have Charles Overton Scott sentenced 42 months imprisonment for conspiracy to commit securities fraud and securities fraud. We have Alexander Sittenfield, 16 months imprisonment for bribery concerning programs receiving federal funds, attempted extortion under color of official right. We have Earl Lamont sentenced to 18 months imprisonment for theft of government property. Baltimore drug kingpin Garnett Gilbert Smith was sentenced to 300 months imprisonment for conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute cocaine. Charles LeVar Tanner, who I can't find anything about online, was sentenced to 360 months imprisonment for conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine. Annabelle Valenzuela was sentenced to 384 months imprisonment for conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and criminal forfeiture 2 counts. Imad Shah Zuberi was sentenced to 144 months imprisonment with a 15.7 million in restitution and a criminal fine of 1.75 million for violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, tax evasion, foreign conduit and other illegal campaign contributions, tampering with the witness, victim, or informant, and obstruction of justice. Specifically, he was using foreign money to fund illegal campaign contributions that bought him political influence and used that influence to lobby U.S. officials for policy change on behalf of numerous foreign principals. He not only concealed his lucrative agreements with foreign principals, but also He not only concealed his lucrative agreements with those foreign principals, but also made false statements about them in FARA filings. After learning he was under investigation, Zuberi doubled down on his criminal conduct, obstructing justice by creating false records, destroying evidence, and attempting to purchase witness silence. He's not guilty. We have Jeremy Young Hutchinson sentenced to 50 months imprisonment for conspiracy to commit bribery, aiding and abetting filing of false income tax returns, conspiracy, criminal forfeiture of property. Hutchinson was indicted by a federal grand jury on 12 wire and tax fraud charges. Hutchinson also resigned from office that same day. We have Edward Ruben Sotelo from the Sotelo crime family, and he's sentenced to life imprisonment for conspiracy, continuing criminal enterprise, possession with intent to distribute 1 kilogram of cocaine, aiding and abetting 2 counts, use of telephone to facilitate
Stop it. Get some help.
Use of telephone to facilitate commission of a felony 3 counts, possession with intent to distribute 10 counts of marijuana, and aiding and abetting, distribution of more than 5 kilograms of cocaine and aiding and abetting. We have his other family member, Joe Angelo Sotelo, with life imprisonment, conspiracy, possession with intent to distribute 1 kilogram of cocaine and abetting. Everything I've listed pretty far is pretty damning, and I hope you see the pattern I do in who we are pardoning. But fear not, because I have 28 more to go through, and these are the good ones, the ones that you, me, and others could argue that there's a reason to pardon them. You ready? We have Mark Bashaw, who was an army man who didn't trust the COVID vax and believed that some of it would interfere with his religious beliefs, and so he continued to wear a mask without getting COVID checks before going to work, where you would put it on, you know, like the little thing on not to shoot me. And that's all. And Trump cleared his record for that conviction. He was an army man. He wasn't in jail, but it was on his record, right? And so it was probably hurting him in getting other jobs. So that was cleared. That's all right, whatever. We have a couple, James M. Kerman and Marlene Mary Kernan, allowed and enabled felons to work in insurance. And they didn't hurt nobody. They got some people jobs, whatever. That could be debatable. We have Tanner J. Mansell and John R. Moore, Jr., both part of a shark-seeing boat charter out of Jupiter Inlet, who were convicted of stealing fishing gear when they'd freed 19 sharks in a Goliath grouper from what they believed to be an illegal fishing longline. The longline was actually set by a seafood distributor who had a federal permit for shark research. Despite the intentions, they faced felony charges and were pardoned recently. And we have 24 anti-abortion protesters who blockaded entry to abortion clinic and were sentenced in regards to the 1994 FACE Act. So how do you feel about the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse we just protected in the last 6 months? Not to mention the amount of restitutions we just said, you know, you've done the crime, but we don't need that money for you to spend time in prison. Meanwhile, we have numerous people of all skin colors in jail for petty crime, for longer than some of these people have ever served, for their massive overstepping of their positions that impacted hundreds of thousands of lives. Keep bragging about the orange man all you want, but actions speak louder than words. And when you have real people that should be pardoned and we do this, it's abhorrent, it's disgusting, and should not be something we ignore if we're going to say immigrants are taking all of your jobs. They are funneling insane amounts of drugs into the country. They're murderers. You're honestly not wrong to believe some of them are, sure, but when you're actively letting people off for drug kingpins, gang leaders, high officials caught with their pants down, both figuratively and literally, it doesn't sit right. In fact, it's a mockery to the working class at home and only amplifies and drills into people the type of person you are. Because it is. Why did the DOJ instruct prosecutors to ease up on crypto enforcement? Why did we roll back 47 prior energy efficiency regulations? We cut key protections for Marines to allow commercial fishing into marine national monuments. We fired everyone at the Low-Income Heat and Energy Assistance Program. We eliminated the Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. We completely terminated funding to the United Nations World Food Program, which is a part of the Sustainable Development Goals Program. We also withdrawed funding for United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and clean energy-related contracts canceled. Migratory bird protections were canceled. Cut assistance in Yemen, Syria, and Afghan. Got rid of a Biden-era rule that strengthened the ability to prosecute SA, sexual assault, and discrimination cases. I don't give a fuck, YouTube. You could demonetize me all you want. Eliminated the Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management, or redirect it to increase fossil fuel use. America, land of the free, home of the brave, or as I'll now say, land for the thieves and home where you can't save. Where you have freedom of speech, but if you hold a Black Lives Matter flag near a U.S. embassy, you can now be convicted. Where families who've grown into their 20s, 30s, and 40s will be scared for their birthright citizenship being taken away. Where children who have stage 4 cancer and need our capabilities, instead, them and their parents will get deported. For what? No crime in those cases. I'm all for people going for crime. I am not for making a class of people we don't have to be transparent about. As per the Constitution, any person on our soil has due rights. That only means to be seen before a judge, only means you're innocent until proven guilty. And so if Trump wants to use the Constitution when it works in his favor, you damn sure shouldn't be saying it's too many people to give them their rights. Don't be flimsy with it, use it at all times. Because if we create a class of people we don't need to say they're innocent until proven guilty, like you're trying to do, anyone can be put in that category. The main problem with the Kilmar Abrigo Garcia, I'm sorry if I butcher it, issue is he had 2 prior court cases. In October 2019, he was granted a withholding of removal order. Court documents show a status difference from asylum, but one which prevents the U.S. government from sending him to El Salvador on the grounds that he could face harm as a target. What happened? We sent him to El Salvador while mass deporting everyone else. What does that tell you? In the time they were gathering people up and sent him off, they didn't even do the due diligence in looking at records of the following person we are deporting. Because if they had, then they wouldn't have sent him to El Salvador, the one place on earth a judge has a ruling to not deport him to. That's the issue everyone's screaming due process about this case. Some people just don't understand it. Sure, we are assuming a bit here, and I'm not in the fucking room with them, but there are times in life where you need to do the math yourself and come up with an answer. It's pretty point blank clear, in my opinion, the lack of formality they had. Meanwhile, we have the sitting president holding a doctored photo to make the only thing tying him to MS-13 look more like a MS-13 tattoo. But if you were to ask me, on one of those fingers that's a marijuana leaf, and on the other one it's a cross. My brother has similar types of tattoos on his finger. It spells out gold. Does that mean anything? Gang related?
The Supreme Court unanimously ruled late last week that Abrego Garcia's removal to El Salvador was, quote, illegal, and ordered the Trump administration to facilitate his return. The administration claims Abrego Garcia is a member of the MS-13 gang, but a federal judge said last week they have offered, quote, no evidence to back that up, and he has no criminal record here or in El Salvador. After that ruling, President Trump told reporters this.
I have great respect for the Supreme Court. If they said to bring him back, I would tell them to bring him back.
But now the administration argues that federal courts have no authority to direct the executive branch on how to conduct foreign relations.
That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us.
And over the weekend, 10 more migrants were sent to that prison in El Salvador. Trump said he likes it, even for U.S. citizens, suggesting Americans could be next.
I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that.
That might sound like Trump's just joking, trying to rile up his opponents, but before reporters and cameras were in the Oval Office, a member of the Salvadoran delegation was live streaming, and Trump can be heard saying to Bukele, quote, homegrowns are next, the homegrowns, suggesting that Bukele needs to build about 5 more prisons. Bukele laughed, and Trump can be heard saying, quote, it's not big enough.
Demanded the people wanted to change everything, and they wanted to. He demanded, they love you, they love what you do. Well, you know, I'm not your supporter. I want him to do, you know, homegrown criminals next. Yeah. I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns built. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right. It's not big enough.
I could start shitting on Kash Patel, Kristi Noem, JD Vance, Marco Rubio, Pam Bondi, Howard Lutnick, Lee Zeldin, but I'm not. I'll just leave these names here if you want to go through a rabbit hole of stupidity that our nation has come to on your own. I really urge anyone to go watch the Senate committees that involve these people that I just named, but make sure you're in a stable seat, because they will constantly go around and around the room, spinning you until you're dizzy and wasting the shot clock until the timer is out. Most of the yes or no questions get ignored, and if they were to answer, they'd be held liable under perjury. So they make sure they got a nice lawyer to give them ample amounts of excuses and sentences that are completely irrelevant to questions but could save their ass from being in jail. So now that I've gone over a lot what I wanted to get off my chest and scream to the void about, I'll end it with saying this: if you want to make America great again, tax the rich. If you want to see real change, tax the rich. Tax me too, but I don't got the money to build roads or pay for lights. They do. Yet rather than that, this big beautiful bill, which is now passed the House with a vote of 215 to 214, and is now going to give a tax cut to the rich, minorly affecting us but heavy for them, while also cutting a ludicrous number of billions from Medicaid, which will affect nearly 13 million American citizens, not immigrants, American citizens. Now this bill is up to the Senate, and unfortunately, whether this bill passes or doesn't pass, we have wild times ahead of us. Sorry for taking so much time off of making videos. This is very different from my usual, even though they're all different. However, I really wanted to sit and rant my opinions and thoughts in these pressing times. I plan to focus on a more balanced video that looks the very same, but on the Democratic side issues, because I want to make it clear both sides are the problem. Whether it's the far left socialists that for years were doing the same shit just on different days, both sides need to grow the fuck up and realize the position of power you are in not only can but will change tomorrow. So think of changing tomorrow for good.